A rabbi says it takes people of good faith to stand against anti-Semitism and not allow America's values to deteriorate from the inside. We spoke with the managing director at the Coalition for Jewish Values about the pro-Israel march in D.C. and Catholic universities supporting Jewish students. Rabbi Yaakov Menken, thank you so much for joining us. Great to have you back on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Rabbi, there's been a lot of protests in support of Palestine, but there's actually a march in D.C. today. There's tens of thousands there in support of Israel. What's the message this march is sending, not just to the world, but also the Jewish community and students in America?
I'm actually hearing estimates now that it's over 200,000 people are already there, and more are still coming. It's really an amazing show of solidarity with Israel, and honestly, it's on behalf of civilization. You look at these people; they're not actually pro-Palestine. A person who's pro-Palestine is concerned about the subjugation of women under Hamas. It's concerned with people to have the right to have alternate political opinions under Hamas. It's to be able to choose to vote for whom you wish, which is not available neither in the Palestinian Authority nor in Hamas-controlled Gaza. So these people are actually not pro-Palestine. They're simply anti-Israel. They're simply anti the Jews. And when you talk about people who are glorifying things like the rape of women, beheading of babies, these people are anti-civilization. So this is really a march for America and American civilization, as well as support for Israel and against anti-Semitism.
And expanding on that note, how important is this march to the world to send out that message?
Well, I think it's crucial. I think there's an inflection point for the United States right now. I don't think it was out in the open. It was obvious to us and basically to anybody who looked that groups like Students for Justice in Palestine and the Council on American Islamic Relations were actually anti-Jewish hate groups disguising themselves as human rights outfits. They're not interested in human rights at all. They're interested in destruction and lack of dialogue and glorification of murder, as we're seeing. Well, now it's out in the open. It's time for civilization to stand against that, or America will lose everything that America stands for.
And we've also seen rising anti-Semitism across campuses, especially towards Jewish students. Now, there are Catholic universities who are coming out in support of Jewish students, creating these safe havens for them. How do you read this? Almost different religions helping each other.
Well, I mean, you look at Fordham University. They were the first to deny, and they actually went to court for the right to deny a charter to a Students for Justice in Palestine charter as a student organization. Because SJP is just a hate group. I think that religious people realize that when religious liberty for one is threatened, religious liberty for all is threatened. What starts with the Jews never ends with the Jews. And Christians know. You look around the world at the places where Christians are experiencing the worst persecution, and what those places share in common is that they're already Judenrein. They're already all the Jews have been cleansed out. And that's why they're going after the Christians. Because, you know, the Jews had values first, and then they go after everybody else who stands for values. And then, of course, you have the Chinese who go after everybody who stands for values, and now they're going after the Uyghur Muslims because it's all that same hate. So it's actually very heartening to see universities standing up for the Jewish people and welcoming them in. I understand that there are certain universities that are now allowing Jewish students to transfer from places where they're experiencing hostility in the middle of the year because it's just not it's not appropriate, and people of good faith and good conscience have to stand against it.
Rabbi, you mentioned the word it's heartening. Are you hopeful given these actions by these Catholic schools and the march today for the Jewish community in the States?
Well, let's talk about the Jewish community and then the states, because the Jews are going to survive. That is our thing. When the Jews hold tightly to their beliefs and their faith, we do persevere through the worst of experiences. I mean, look at Nazi Germany. And today, of course, to be called a Nazi is the worst epithet. And so the second question is, this is an inflection point for the United States. This is about radical Islam. It's not about the Islamic faith in general. But the radical Islamists are the ones who are pushing for people to go and emigrate and go to places like Europe and the United States to take over and rot out those values from the inside in favor of jihad and Sharia law. And that is going to destroy the United States if the United States doesn't start to stand against it. And again, that's why it's heartening that there's an option here for America to turn a very important corner.
Rabbi Yaakov Menken, thank you so much for your time.
Again, thank you for